My name is Mia. I'm sitting on my balcony, overlooking the glittering city skyline. The night air is cold, but there's a sense of peace and accomplishment that warms me from within. Just a few days ago, I received an email from a real estate magazine, requesting an interview about my journey from being overlooked to owning a multi-million-dollar portfolio. The article they published went viral. The headline read, "From Rejection to Real Estate Empire, the woman who bought her freedom one property at a time." Thousands of comments poured in, with women sharing stories of being told, "You're not the type." It's been a long and arduous journey, and it all started with a family that never truly believed in me. I grew up in a middle-class family. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, were well-intentioned but had a clear favorite, my older brother, Jake. Jake was 28, charming, and the apple of my parents' eyes. He was the kind of son they boasted about at every social gathering. Every success he achieved was met with thunderous applause, and every mistake was quickly excused. When Jake turned 25, my father handed him the keys to a brand new $150,000 villa. It was supposed to be a small investment to get him started. I remember standing in the corner of the room that night, holding the cake knife, as if it could cut through the pain in my heart. A week later, I timidly brought up my desire to save for my own home. My mother, with a gentle laugh, said, "Sweetheart, renting is just fine for you. You're not the type to own property." I didn't argue. I just forced a smile, nodded, and locked those words deep inside me, a place where I stored the pain that I intended to turn into motivation. That night, I left home with only $80 in my bank account, but I had a fire in my belly that could light up the entire city. I worked as a real estate administrator during the day and studied investment analytics at night. At 26, I managed to flip my first small apartment. It wasn't easy. There were no gifts or handouts. It was all about discipline, countless spreadsheets, and an ability to see value where others saw only risk. By the time I was 29, I quietly and efficiently owned 5 properties across the state. I thought I had come to terms with my family's ignorance, but then my mother decided to Google me. One late night, I received a text from her. It was short, clipped, and trembling with confusion masked as politeness. "Mia, call me when you can. I found something online about you, and I think we need to talk." I almost burst out laughing. It sounded like she had stumbled upon a scandal rather than my success. When I didn't reply, the calls started. Then Jake chimed in, his name flashing on my screen with that familiar mix of arrogance and entitlement. "Mom's freaking out. She said you're buying properties in your name." "You? Since when?" I stared at his message, the way he wrote you like it was an insult. I typed back, "Since you stopped noticing." The next day, I drove to the family home, the same place where I'd been told I wasn't the type to own things. Every hallway was lined with Jake's framed photos, like shrines to his achievements. My mother greeted me at the door, clutching her phone like it was evidence. "Mia, what is this?" she demanded, thrusting the phone at me. My real estate portfolio glowed on the screen, with listings of my 5 properties and my name neatly printed under owner. I took a sip of the coffee she'd made and calmly said, "That's my work. That's my life." Her voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because you never asked," I replied. Jake stormed in, his face red with anger. "You've been lying to us?" "No," I said, meeting his glare. "You just never believed I could do anything worth knowing." My father walked in, holding his newspaper like a shield. "You could have shared your success. Family supports each other." I gave him the same polite smile that they'd mistaken for weakness for years. "Family supports each other when it's mutual, Dad. I supported myself when no one else did." My mother's eyes darted between us, her voice trembling. "You own 5 houses?" I nodded. 6, actually. I closed on the newest one last week. The silence that followed was heavy, like the sound of a throne collapsing. Jake paced the living room, his shoes echoing on the marble floors that my father loved to brag about. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "You're making this up. There's no way you could afford 6 houses." I tilted my head, almost amused. "You think you're the only one who understands business?" He scoffed. "You work in real estate, Mia. You don't own real estate." I smiled faintly. "That's what you thought." My mother's voice cut through the tension, softer now, a mix of disbelief and wounded pride. "We would have helped you, sweetheart. You didn't have to do this alone." I looked into her eyes. "I did it alone because I had to. You helped Jake when he failed 3 startups, remember? You even called it building character. When I failed, you called it wasting time." She flinched as if I'd struck her. "That's not fair." "Neither was growing up invisible," I said quietly. My father folded his paper with precision. "You're being dramatic. We raised you both the same." I let out a sharp, honest laugh. "No, Dad. You raised Jake to be a king and me to be his witness." Jake's face reddened. "You're jealous." "Jealous?" I repeated slowly. "No, Jake. I'm exhausted. I just got tired of waiting for permission to be proud of myself." He stepped closer, his jaw tight. "You think this money makes you better than us?" I met his stare unblinking. "No, but it definitely made me free from you." My mother's hand trembled as she set down her cup. "You've changed." "I had to," I said. "The version you raised wouldn't have survived out there." My father's silence said it all. It wasn't regret or love, it was the cold calculation of a man realizing that the hierarchy he'd built was cracking. For the first time, I didn't feel small in that room. I felt like the earthquake that made them finally look up. That night, I stayed at their house longer than I intended, mostly out of curiosity, watching how quickly admiration could turn into resentment. My mother tried to play mediator, her voice sugary but brittle. "You have to understand, Mia. This is a shock for all of us. We're proud, really, but you could have told us before making such big decisions." "Would it have changed anything?" I asked. "Would you have believed me if I said I could afford a home before Jake?" She looked down, silent. Jake poured himself another drink, muttering under his breath. "You think you're some big shot now because Google wrote about you? You're nothing without luck." I turned towards him slowly. "Luck doesn't show up at 3 a.m. When you're studying interest curves and building spreadsheets in the dark. Luck doesn't answer calls from clients who only believe in you after results. You don't build an empire with luck, Jake. You build it when nobody cheers for you." His glass hit the counter too hard, splashing bourbon across the marble. "You've changed," he said. "You used to be humble." "No," I corrected softly. "I used to be silent." My father stood up then, the room shifting under his authority. "That's enough," he said. "This competition ends here. We're family." "Family?" I echoed, my voice quiet but sure. Family didn't believe in me. Family didn't show up when I needed help. You only noticed me when I became useful. His jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. That was the moment I knew I'd finally said what no one else had dared to. I grabbed my coat, my keys, and my composure. "I didn't come here to fight," I said. "I came here to prove that the girl you dismissed learned to stand taller than your expectations." My mother whispered after me, "Mia, please don't leave like this." I paused at the door and turned back. "Don't worry, Mom. I'm not leaving with anger. I'm leaving with proof." Outside, the night air was cold, but it tasted like justice. I could hear the sound of denial finally cracking behind me. By the next morning, my phone was flooded with missed calls from my mother, 2 angry voicemails from Jake, and a text from my father that simply said, "You embarrassed your brother. He's family, Mia." Don't forget where you came from. I stared at the text for a while before replying, oh, I haven't forgotten. I just stopped living there. Then I silenced my phone and drove back to the city. My penthouse wasn't a showpiece, it was a haven of peace, with tall windows, quiet air, and the smell of coffee I made for myself, not for anyone else's approval. As I sat on my balcony, checking on my newest purchase, an ocean view duplex in Miami, an email notification flashed across my screen. The subject was "You should be ashamed of yourself," and it was from Jake. I clicked on it. You've always been jealous. You want to humiliate me because you couldn't handle being second best. Mom's crying. Dad's furious. You broke this family for money. I exhaled slowly, not angry, just tired. I wrote back one line, no, Jake. I broke the illusion that money and love were the same thing in this family. And then I blocked him. That night, I received a news alert from a local magazine. It was about me, a rising real estate investor expanding housing grants for single mothers. The article featured my photo in front of one of my buildings, smiling and proud. I didn't realize how public my name had become until I saw it. The next morning, my mother called again, her voice shaking, a mix of pride and panic. Mia, she whispered, everyone's talking about you. You're everywhere. I smiled softly. Guess you were wrong, Mom. She hesitated. About what? About the kind of person who owns things. She didn't know what to say. For once, she had no comeback, no gentle insult, no patronizing advice, just silence. Then she sighed softly. Mia, we didn't mean to make you feel less than your brother. We just thought he needed more help. I leaned against the balcony railing, looking out at the city. You didn't give him help, Mom. You gave him excuses. She went quiet again. I could hear dishes clinking in the background, as if she was trying to fill the silence with anything but the truth. Finally, she said, your father's upset. He feels like you're showing off. I smiled faintly. I worked half my life for the right to show up. If that looks like showing off, maybe you were never looking close enough. Her voice trembled. You've really changed. No, I said gently. I finally became who I was supposed to be. After the call ended, I sat down at my desk and read through dozens of messages from women applying for the housing grant. Teachers, nurses, single moms, all of them had been told, you're not the type, just like me. Each story made me realize that I hadn't built this real estate empire just to prove a point to my family. I'd built it for people like us, those who'd been underestimated into silence. That evening, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from my father. Your mother and I saw the article. We're proud of you, Mia, truly. But I wish you told us first. For once, his tone wasn't condescending. It was human. I typed slowly, I tried telling you for years, Dad. You just weren't listening. Then I turned my phone off. The world outside was filled with thousands of lights, each one a reminder that sometimes you have to outshine the people who told you to stay small. And the best part? You don't owe them an explanation when you finally glow. 2 weeks later, my mother invited me to a small family dinner to talk things out. I almost said no, but then I realized it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about closure. When I arrived, the atmosphere was painfully polite. Jake avoided my eyes, stirring his wine with unnecessary focus. My father sat stiffly, his expression trying to balance pride and discomfort. My mother fussed with the napkins, as if they were the key to peace. Clara, she began carefully, we all made mistakes. Let's start fresh. Sure, I said calmly, but let's start honestly. Jake groaned. Not this again. I turned to him. Don't worry, I'm not here to embarrass you, just to thank you. He blinked. Thank me? Yes, I said, leaning forward, because if you hadn't taken everything I ever wanted, the support, the chances, the praise, I might have grown up believing comfort was enough. You taught me to earn everything. So, thank you. For once, he had no comeback. My father cleared his throat. Mia, you've proven yourself. You've made us proud. But you have to understand, parents do their best with what they know. I nodded slowly. And children grow from what they survive. The table went silent. My mother's eyes welled up, but she smiled weakly. Maybe we can still have you home for Christmas? I thought about the word home, how it once meant walls that never echoed my name, and how now it meant peace, wherever I created it. I smiled gently. Maybe, but I'll bring my own table this time. They all looked confused, but I didn't explain. When I left that night, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt finished, because closure isn't a door slam, it's a soft click, the sound of your heart finally locking out what no longer deserves entry. As I drove home that night, the city lights stretched across the skyline like a map of every no that had turned into a victory. When I parked outside my newest property, I whispered to myself, you weren't the type who owned things, remember? Then I laughed, because now I owned everything they said I couldn't.